Hi, Greg Study on Soccer, and I am here with Joey Tavernese. And this is just so cool because obviously everybody knows that most of the stuff that I do is with people here on the West Coast or the players and coaches, whatever, that come through San Diego. But with this lockdown, if you want to call it that, quarantine, um, the opportunity has arisen to get on Zoom and use this format and record some conversations with people that I would normally not have a chance to talk to. Joey Tavernese, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be on here. We're obviously all quarantined, so we got a little bit more time on our hands right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. So first thing I want to do is I just want to say Happy Easter, and I just read through. I got to tell you, I didn't read through it word for word, skimmed through it. A write up that you just posted, and I just shared that onto MASL Off the Wall, so everybody can get a read for it. And it was pretty detailed. It was a pretty nice little read you got going on there. Talk.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been trying to do what I can to stay busy during this quarantine, and not only just for myself, for others. So I've been doing a couple of things, and I'm not the biggest social media guy, but I've been putting on, a fair amount of social media just to try and connect with people because I obviously can't be with them face to face. So, I've been doing some cooking with my mom. We
Nice.
did some Sunday sauce. We made homemade pizzas.
That's
She's been
cool.
baking. Um, my brother and his girlfriend are in my parents' house where we're all stationed during this quarantine. So we did our own little makeshift around the world. We got
I,
some alcohol from the different places.
I
We
saw that.
dressed up like we were going to those countries.
How
Um,
ingenious. That's a great idea.
yeah, so we made our own little Epcot in my parents' house. We like to call it a frat house, so we call it Pi Kappa Tav. And we're just trying to do
Pi
things
Kappa
to
Tav. Like,
yes, Pi
like
Kappa
Pi Kappa
Tav.
Tav. That's hot. I love it.
Right, yeah. So we're just trying to do things, and then you know what? I was like, since we all can't be together, let me put together a video. So last week I reached out to some of the youth kids that I train through my soccer school that I own. A lot of the guys around the MASL, USL, even some MLS guys, and then I reached out to some people I know who do different things: gymnastics, dance,
Oh, very cool.
volleyball, lacrosse. And I put together one of those videos where we're passing the ball out of the screen
I
to
saw
the
that.
next person. And it was pretty cool because I have friends all around the world from playing soccer and traveling.
Right.
And, we hit a lot of different countries and cities.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty cool thing to put together.
I
So I'm just trying to link everybody as best we can.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing a good job, and it's because of your reaching out on social media, in fact, Joey, that prompted me to get a hold of you and reach out to you to see if we could get together and do this. Because obviously, it was apparent to me anyway that you're somebody that is sitting down and thinking, putting your head to this, and how can we engage people while we're not able to engage people? And I think that you've come up with some pretty ingenious ideas. Um, so besides all of that, what are you doing? What are you doing sheltered indoors? I mean, are you training on Zoom, or are you just pretty much hunkered in town, or what's going on?
We're doing a couple of things over here. I'm obviously, on my own, just trying to stay fit.
Right,
I spent a lot of time with the futsal team this season, so I missed a fair amount of games because we had a lot of camps and trips.
right,
That's obviously been on hold and postponed, but I want to make sure that I'm ready whenever they say that qualifiers and the World Cup is back on.
right,
So I want to be fully fit and ready for that. In terms of like what I've been doing for my soccer school, I've sent out some workouts to some of the kids. I've linked them with videos,
right.
and I've done some trainings, abiding by the social distancing rules.
Yep.
So things like that. I've obviously kept close with a lot of the guys around the league. I'm sure you could tell through the video, I had a lot of indoor guys on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So not just guys from Florida and Utica, guys that are all over the place.
Right.
And I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to make it so that people are kind of upbeat. The quarantine, listen, the virus has turned our world upside down. The
Absolutely.
quarantine is obviously not something that we want to be a part of. But,
Absolutely.
like I wrote in the article, personally for me, I've tried to find the positives in it. I haven't spent a lot of time with my family between back in the day. I used to play indoor and outdoor, so I was never home. When I am home, I work long hours with my soccer school because I'm away a lot of the time with indoor, with futsal. So, it's been enjoyable to get a workout in and come home and not have so much stuff to worry about and sit down and eat dinner with my family and play game night with my family. So I think this quarantine, if we all take a step back and think about it, we can at least try and take the positives that we have family. And, even if we're not with them, my family did an Easter Zoom, so
Yep.
everyone was Zooming with the extended family. We saw my grandma and stuff like that. So, I want to try and make the most of it on and off the field as I can. And hopefully it ends sooner rather than later because I know everyone wants to get back to normalcy. But for this month, I've tried to make the most of it.
And I think you really hit it on the head because family is the opportunity that we have in this quarantine to get together with. In fact, the here in Southern California, they're saying they don't want us to hang out with anybody other than family, even with family that we don't live with. They don't want us to go and visit because of the stay at home orders that are out there. I'm going to rewind the clock a little bit here. I'd like to talk a little bit about your success as a youth player before soccer. You experienced some success as a kid, didn't you?
Yeah. So I mean, Long Island's a pretty hotbed. The tri-state area is a pretty hotbed for soccer. Just as Southern California is, Texas, other places like that.
Right,
So I bounced around a few teams, youth. Back then, there was no developmental academy. There was no all these different leagues. It was pretty much just one league. So
gotcha.
everyone entered in a league. You tried to win your state. You tried to win your region, and so on and so forth. So my senior year, the team that I played for, the Terryville Fire, we actually won state cup, regionals, and nationals that year.
Are you
Um,
kidding?
and the team that we beat was from Southern California. They were
Really?
called Arsenal, and they were the three-time defending champs before that year. So they were going for a four-peat.
Oh,
Um,
that's
honestly, it was a crazy experience, a roller coaster ride. My team was by no means the best team, probably in the state.
gotcha.
But it's like the NCAA tournament. We got hot.
Right.
We were confident, and we had some pretty special players on that team who kind of got us, brought us along the road to get us to each next level and phase. And it was a crazy experience. And like I said, everyone entered in that. So you really felt like you
No
were
kidding.
the best team in the country back then, which was a pretty cool feeling.
No kidding. I mean, especially at that level, because you're not talking 2 dozen teams. You're talking a few thousand teams. I mean, that's
Yeah, yeah. So, and of course, New York's not an easy state to get through.
right.
So we had to get through New York, then we had to get through Region One, which has pretty big states like Virginia,
Right.
Pennsylvania, New Jersey. So there's a lot of good states there. And then Nationals was a fun experience. I scored in the semifinal to win it, which is
Right.
one of the highlight goals of my career.
Absolutely.
Um, and one of the guys who really brought us along, his name was Connor O'Brien. He went on to play in Europe, in Europa League, and Champions League qualifiers, which was awesome to play with him and see his success in career.
Wow. All right. And then 4 years of college. You played for Siena College?
Yeah, so I went to Siena. It was an adjustment for me. I found college soccer to be pretty athletic. I'm obviously not the fastest, the tallest, the strongest. So
Right.
it was a kind of a reality check to try and find my way if I wanted to really go forward with soccer, with how I could get by while I was lacking those things. So, see, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say, you didn't go straight from college into indoor soccer.
No. So, playing in college, I tried to find my way, and I tried to find if I was truly in love with the game or not.
Yeah.
And I found a purpose that I was a good role player, a good utility player.
Gotcha.
And when I first got to Siena, they were not very good my freshman year. And by senior year, we had really turned the program around. Credit to my coach who recruited very well.
Right.
But my senior year, I really started to realize like, hey, this could be the last time I play competitive soccer. And as that was going on, I was like, I really love the game. So senior year is when I really buckled down. I stopped for the entire summer and the fall season. I stopped, enjoying the lifestyle of college and partying and stuff. I
Right.
really wanted to take soccer serious. And, then when the springtime came, I went on some USL trials, and I was lucky enough to sign with a USL team that has since folded, but they were out of New York. So, that was an awesome experience. I made lifetime friends. I loved, the college experience and, the camaraderie. It gives you a little bit of sense of what pro
Absolutely.
life is like, but not really.
Yep.
So, that was awesome. And then that's basically where it led into that. So I went to FC New York. They folded. I went to Australia to play for a season. I came back, and that's when I kind of got hooked up with Soccer Sam. People were like,
Yep.
listen, your game is really suited for indoor. And my
Right.
college coach always told me that too. And they were like, why don't you give it a try? So then it's kind of a funny story because Tommy Tanner and I are very good friends now. And I went on a tryout at Syracuse, and Tommy cut me.
Okay.
So I
That's
went to, back then it was MISL. So I went to
right.
the MISL combine, and
That's
I
right.
had a really good showing. And that's when I met Soccer Sam. He
Awesome.
brought me in, and him and I are awesome friends, and he's done
Yep.
a lot for my career.
I know.
Um,
Love him.
and yeah, so I got there, and I struggled at first. Indoor's not the easiest game to figure out. So
Right.
although I was good against people who weren't necessarily indoor players,
Right.
when I got there and played against, Mauricio Salas was there, Dougie Miller was there,
Right.
Ray Boom Boom Martinez, Jimmy
Right.
Hesh. So
Right.
a lot of these guys knew the game, whereas I really didn't. So I struggled. And I had told people that first year, I lived on a couch. I didn't get housing. I struggled to get a contract that first year. But,
Wow.
I was desperate to play. I really was in
Very
love
cool.
with the game, and I really loved indoor.
Nice.
So I stuck it out. And the reason that I saw Ray Martinez this year in Florida, we were joking about this. The
Right.
reason that I got my chance to play was because Ray got suspended for 15 days.
Okay.
So I got implemented in, and I got to play a few games, and then they signed me for the rest of the season. And the first year I didn't do much. I mean, I was rostered, but I really didn't play too much.
Right.
And then, I decided I wanted to seriously, keep pursuing it. So back then I was playing indoor and outdoor.
Right.
Um, and I was bouncing back and forth. And then, we had an okay season with Josh Reif. And when I was there, I kind of started to figure the game out. And then Dougie Miller and me I'm really close with him and his family. And he
Yeah.
took me under his wing the year he coached. And that's
Very
kind
cool.
of where my name kind of blew up, and I had a pretty successful season that year.
So tell me something. As an athlete growing up, again, we're going to kind of rewind just a little bit, but as a kid growing up and deciding that you're an athlete, you're going to go out and you're going to pursue athletics. In the United States, you have a lot of choices. What made you gravitate towards soccer?
Well, so a lot of people who know me know that Kobe Bryant's my favorite athlete.
Okay.
I love Kobe forever. So I actually played basketball, and I was pretty good, but it's pretty hard to be a successful basketball player when you're 5'7".
Yeah.
So I actually used to run pickup squad with the guys at Siena, and they were good. A lot of them went pro. They were in the NCAA tournament, but you get swatted pretty much every single time you're going to the hoop.
Right.
So that didn't really work for me. I tried other things, but I played soccer from an early age, and
Mhm.
it was, listen, as much as people think that athletics is a luxury and it's fun, it still is a job. I wrote that in that big article that Sydney had published for me.
Yeah.
I missed a lot of family events, a lot of high school events, a lot of relationships were lost because of soccer and traveling and moving. So it's something that you truly have to step back and say, do you really love this? And are you willing to kind of put everything else on the side to, pursue it? And
Right.
I'm by no means Messi or Ronaldo, and I haven't had a career like that, but I've dedicated my life basically to the game of soccer. I own a soccer school.
Yep.
I've played year round
Yep.
for 30 years. I've moved all over the country and the world.
Yep.
And, at times it's like anything. You definitely question if you're making the right decision.
Yeah.
But over the last 15 months, I've truly realized how important soccer was to my life. So,
Yeah.
my dad put me in as a kid, and him and I just kind of fell in love with it, and we just ran with it from there.
That's great. That's really cool. You were talking a little bit about the transition into indoor. How long do you think it took you before you were actually comfortable with the nuances of the indoor game?
It's funny. I was talking to Dougie and Sam about that this year. Obviously Rochester struggled a bit.
Yep.
I think by the end of the season, though, they were starting to figure it out.
Yep.
And that's credit to the players. That's credit to Sam, and that's a lot of credit to Dougie as well.
Absolutely.
Um, they asked me, listen, even when I got to Florida, it's funny. Those guys are phenomenal players, but a
Yeah.
lot of them really didn't know or understand the indoor game. Victor Pereira, for me, is easily one of the best players in the league. And he wanted to learn a lot about indoor, about the boards, about positioning, about stuff like that.
Right.
I truly think, depending upon who you are, you can get by and you can be a good indoor player. But to truly understand the game
Yeah.
and to be really, really knowledgeable and a solid player in and out of indoor, for me, they say it takes 2 full seasons.
Okay.
I think before you're really an actual indoor veteran, I think it's more like 3 and 4.
Interesting. Okay.
Um,
Good.
and it really determines upon how much, how much time you put in. When I got to Florida, those guys left. Like, how do you know everywhere to hit the ball off the boards?
Right.
When I was a rookie in Rochester, I was the first person in there, and I was the last person to leave, and I would figure out how to do
Absolutely.
anything.
Yep.
People always say, like, oh, you score all these scrappy goals, but I know how the play develops, so I'm always trying to find that right spot to just be open to tap it in. When you
Exactly.
play with good players, it makes it very easy.
Right.
So that's something that I worked on, and you need mentors. Zach Reggett's a phenomenal player, and I enjoyed working with him this year because I tried to help him with the indoor games, the boards and where to be positioned and things like that. And for me, I had a lot of special people. Jake Schindler is one of my good friends. He helped me out a lot when I got there. Dougie Miller, Ray
Right.
Martinez, Jimmy Hess, Josh Wright,
Right.
Mauricio Salas. I've had a lot of guys along the way that have really helped me out. And I wanted to learn. You can't come in there and think I played MLS, so I'm the best indoor player.
Yeah. Right.
It's not the same. You're
No.
you're you're on a different level than we are now. So there's a lot of nuances that you have to learn. It's the same thing when I went to play futsal. I had no idea what I was getting myself into,
Right.
and I had players like Nelson Santana, Keith Tozer.
Right.
Now we have Dushan. Uh, you have to be willing to learn from these guys. That's how you're going to get better. If you want to just do it your way, it's a very hard game to learn.
Yeah. Let me ask you. There's a little in the bio that I was reading. There's a short little stint of kind of a question mark from between Rochester and Syracuse. You played for Ontario. What was that about?
Yeah, so Rochester folded. They had the workers' comp issues.
Yep.
So, and that was after I had a good season. So I had spoke to, a bunch of different coaches. I had spoke to, Danny Kelly at Baltimore.
Right.
I spoke to Kevin Healy and Ed Hale, and there was a team that was coming out, Hartford City FC. They were going to be playing indoor and outdoor.
Okay.
So I was choosing between going to Baltimore and going to Hartford. And I joke with Pat Healy all the time because back at that time, I wasn't necessarily so confident. And I was afraid that if I went there, don't get me wrong, their team is good now. But back then, their
Right.
team was special. So, I was nervous that if I went there, I wasn't going to play. And I wasn't ready to just be on a winning team, but not be a part of it, so to say, on the field.
I get that.
So I ended up signing with Hartford. The rest is history. I lost to Baltimore every year. I could have had 3 rings. um, but I went to Hartford, and we were there for about a month because I was basically the only player with, multiple years of experience. We had the Capinos twins there, but they'd only played in the top league for a year or so.
Right.
So we started a month early, and we were training, and I was trying to help, teach them the ropes on and off the field. Even the guys in the office didn't really know how the game worked. And they ran into some financial problems, and I don't really know what went on behind the scenes, but fraud occurred, and the team was forced to fold. So I was there, and then at that point, you're the last person to sign. So everybody else has their rosters ready. Everyone else is in preseason.
Right.
So, a few teams who still were looking for players contacted me. But Ontario was building what I thought was going to be a pretty special team out there. They had Nelly, Mauricio, Basso was out there.
Right.
They had Izzy Cisse and Tiguino. The list goes on and on. Sonaldo. So, I spoke to Bernie, and I was like, listen, I want to try and make a run at winning it. So, I'm happy to come out there. I went out there. Prior to that season, I had a sports hernia that I had taken care of.
Gotcha.
And when we were in Baja, it rained when we were playing them, and the roof doesn't cover the whole field.
That's right.
It rained. I ended up slipping, and I re-aggravated the surgery I had.
Oh, man.
So I ended up having to sit out for a while that I was there. I only played 4 games. And I really enjoyed California. I spent a lot of time in San Diego, actually, because I'm very good friends with Chewy Molina and Matt Clare.
Yeah.
So I was out in San Diego a lot. Nelson and I spent a lot of time out there.
Right.
And I loved it. I hit all the beaches. I went to a Lakers game before Kobe retired. It was awesome. California is a special place.
Yeah.
But, in terms of the organization, it just didn't work out for me. I was injured. I wasn't clicking. I just didn't feel comfortable there.
Right.
And unfortunately, Corey Alanio tore his ACL in Syracuse. They needed a target. Jake was there at this point.
So now you're going to back up with Tommy Tanner.
Yeah, so Tommy reached out because they needed a target, and him and Bernie worked out a deal, and Bernie asked if it was something that I wanted to do, and I said, yeah, I think I'm going to feel more comfortable back on the East Coast.
Right.
I went back there, and it was awesome. I hit the field flying. Those guys really accepted my style of play and played towards what I'm good at. I'm really not the best hold-up play target, but I'm clever, and my movement is there. So they worked with it, and it was an awesome rest of the season. We ended up losing to Baltimore in the playoffs that year in that triple overtime game, which is one of the most exciting games I've been a part of.
Ever.
Yeah, listen, it was always Pat Healy and Tony Donatelli knocking us out of the playoffs. So it was no different there.
And then the Syracuse Silver Knights take this move up to Utica, and where Syracuse had been a respectable side up to that point, Utica hits the ground running, man. What was the chemistry? What was going on?
Yeah, so listen, between all my stints in Rochester, Syracuse, and Utica, we lost to Baltimore every single year.
Yeah.
So I joke with people like my teams were like the Knicks against the Bulls in the Jordan era. There was just no way past it. So, the move from Syracuse to Utica, I wasn't up there. I'm from Long Island. So what was going on behind the scenes, I was kind of hearing secondhand.
Okay.
And, it seemed like it was going to be a great thing. Back then this is when I was really talking about being done playing. I had met a girl in Syracuse.
Okay.
And, I was like, I want to try and make this work. It's taking a toll on my relationship. I don't know how this is going to work. So I ended up speaking to the owner, Rob, for probably over an hour on the phone. And he convinced me to sign. And listen, being in Utica, it was a special experience. When I got up there, I moved up there a little earlier to get settled in,
Yeah,
and I sat down with them and we tried to put together a team late because again, Utica came out late.
that's
So
right.
we tried to put together a team of players that were left over, like guys who hadn't signed yet.
Right.
So, I reached out to friends all over. I even tried to sign Zuniga the year before. I
Huh.
tried to help them sign Zuniga. It didn't work out.
Yeah.
So we signed Mauricio, we signed Lucio. We
Right.
brought back a lot of the pieces.
Right.
Um, and just being in that environment truly helped. And a lot of the younger guys were another year older, so they
Yeah.
contributed a lot more. And Slav had an incredible season.
Sure.
So we just hit it running. And to be honest, what they do there is something that should be done around the league. I mean, what they do from filming those commercials
Yes.
to the stuff they put all over social media to
Yes.
how they're linked with the community. I
Absolutely.
know it's easier said than done in some places
Sure.
because obviously Utica is a little bit smaller than, say, where you are in a California area or a Florida area. But what they do really brings people together. It makes the players feel like we're truly at the top of the professional ranks. You get taken care of. I can't even tell you there.
That's
Um, and it's just very cool. You're on billboards, you're on commercials, you're on the TV, you're on the radio. When you're around there, I can't tell you how many times I went out to dinner with Nate Bordeaux before a game, and we would go to pay the check, and the tab was already picked up because some fan was in the restaurant and just offered to pay for it.
wow.
So, it's a special place. They were having another successful season this year. I think Tommy did a good job,
Right.
GMing and recruiting the right players.
Right.
Bringing in Diegas and Zuniga,
Right.
and obviously Segura was awesome.
Yeah. That's right.
And they did well. I think if a lot of teams follow what they do, I think the league could get better. Honestly, the league should follow what they do. If
Absolutely.
if the MASL is putting out product of what the guys at Utica do and the guys and girls who work, in the office, it's truly professional. I'm very good friends with a lot of them today. Two of those guys were in the video that I
Yeah.
put together of people around the world.
That's
They
right.
really do a great job. So I think the league needs to focus more on certain things like that of what they do and how Utica is growing their brand. It's for me, the league focuses on things that aren't as important. We should be trying to grow the league. Some of the games, listen, I watch more of the games than anyone. I literally probably watch every game every season, even if it's
Mhm.
Turlock and it's like, you know, 1 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm still up there watching it, So, like, a lot, I just feel like there needs to be an understanding of how we can grow it because there are some special players in this league. I
There are.
mean,
Well,
what people do is special. Look at Craig Childs, Frank Tayu, Ian Bennett, Vinny Dantas. That's to name four.
right. Right.
There's a boatload of players who are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it needs to be appreciated more.
Well, I think that the league tends to be counting on the individual teams to market to their particular markets, but the
Right.
but the league itself doesn't market itself out into the country because it is a YouTube video. You don't have to, I mean, everybody can get the games, every single game. You don't have to necessarily have a team in your backyard in order to support the game. And
Right.
the game is outstanding. One of the things that I have a problem with is trying to figure out how to reach out to, like with this conversation, how to reach out to people who don't already know and love the game. It's easy to promote you and the game and the different people towards people that already, fans that already know the game, but to other sports fans who aren't familiar with the sport. And I've got some feelings about how the sport has been misrun over the years. I mean, I started following this game back in the late 70s, and just, I've seen so many leagues falter and so many teams falter. And I think that there's a sort of a bad taste in the mouth of fans and media as far as whether or not they can trust whether their team is going to be around next year or whether their league is going to be around next year. But marketing the teams, marketing the league the way the teams are being marketed that are doing it right. And Utica is doing it right. So many others don't seem to be doing it at all. So it's I don't know. I want to talk to you about one of your worldwide experiences. You went with the United States team to Tunisia for the World Cup, and you talked about the difference between the indoor game and futsal. But now here's a completely different type of soccer being played on the mini football field. Talk about that experience.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, it seems like I have a lot of run-ins with the same thing. When we were there, we obviously lost to Mexico. We played Mexico so many times. So,
Yeah.
playing against them had more of an indoor feel. When we played against the other countries, I don't think they were playing indoor as much. So, the same thing, it's different. Like, we watched, when I was with the futsal team, we watched our USA v Canada game, and our coach was saying, the new coach, Duchamp, was saying the game looked like an indoor game being played, which he arguably is probably right. Um, Now, the same thing goes when we were in Tunisia. I thought we should have played a little bit more of a futsal style as compared to an indoor style because there's no boards.
That's right.
So when we're trying to play the ball up to Frank Tayu, he doesn't have the boards to hold himself up and hold someone off of and have that
Right.
many options.
That's
We're
right.
putting him on an island that we're just lobbing the ball up to him and saying, here, Frank, go to work.
Right.
It's not as easy when you're in an open field like that.
Right.
So I think, I watched a bit of the games when they were in Australia this year.
Yep.
I thought they played fairly well. I just think in that sort of style of play, you need kind of an interchanging experience. And even when I was in Tunisia, we played a friendly against the Czech Republic, and that's how they played. So they were playing a a moving style, a free flowing style. They didn't just say, okay, this is the target up top, here are the midfielders, here are the defenders. It
Right.
was a rotating style that I think is very successful in that because it draws defenses out, it creates a lot of movement and confusion.
Yeah.
So it works out well. Another team that did it well was Tunisia. When we were in Tunisia, they played
That's right.
well with that movement. So I just think it's a different approach. And again, that's just my personal
Well, sure.
opinion and take on it. Coaches
Sure.
may choose to play differently. And I think they did well this year in Australia. Um, but again, some of the teams like Czech Republic, they're more used to playing like that.
That's right.
So it's no surprise that when it was an indoor game, USA won it all. Like,
That's right.
if people want to come and play indoor, we're happy to play against them because that's our style. Whereas, the other style is a bit more to those other countries.
Right. What do you attribute Mexico's success to? Because I mean, you got to look at the fact that I mean, Mexico's a runner-up in 2015 with the boards. They're the runner-up in Tunisia without the boards, and then they take the championship in Australia without the boards. And most of those players are indoor players.
Yeah, I mean, listen, going into that tournament, although I wasn't in Australia, I had an idea of what some of the teams were going to look like:
Right.
USA, Brazil, Mexico, Czech
Sure.
Republic, since we had played against them.
Right.
And my honest opinion was I thought Mexico was going to win.
Me too.
Honestly, their team was just so talented. At some points, if you have a team that is just that talented, you're probably gonna eventually get over that hump. They were there multiple times, and this was
Yeah.
their time to
Yep.
just kind of finish it off. They played a great style. They have great goal scorers. They have great players, and they really just put it all together. There's not much to really say about their tactics and whatever else. They just had a special team that was destined to win at this time.
Yeah, I think so too. I found it really interesting. Of course, Craig Elston was down there calling the United States and the Mexican games for us on the broadcast, and I found it kind of interesting. It was early in the tournament when he started saying openly that he expected Mexico to win the championship.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, their play was great, and if you just looked at the game's not played on paper, but if you looked at their roster on paper, you knew that
Yeah.
eventually they were going to have to get the job done.
Yeah. So now you just recently got back from Croatia, a futsal tournament. What was that about?
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. So, we had a bunch of domestic camps, and our new coach is phenomenal. He's really like a futsal guru. He's taught us so much, and obviously, just talking about how you're bringing up like the boards and no boards.
Right.
We're obviously, we have on the current squad or the pool that we have. There's a lot of futsal guys on our current pool, but there's still a fair amount of us that play indoor.
Right.
So we through those domestic camps, he put together a team. Now I chose to go. Some people were invited and chose to stay with their indoor teams.
Gotcha.
Some people were injured who play indoor and couldn't go. Like Ricardinho was on the team with
Right.
me in Florida. He was injured at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we went, and it's kind of crazy. This is just when coronavirus was kind of starting to really make a bigger impact outside of China.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were at the airport and we had to change our flights because we were actually flying into Italy
Oh,
because it borders. We were flying into Venice.
that's right.
So it was a quick flight right from Venice over there, and
Right.
we had to change everything up. So we ended up going all over. We were going to Germany, Amsterdam. We went everywhere just to get
Wow.
to Croatia.
Wow.
So yeah, it was interesting. But the trip was amazing. We played a bunch of different countries. We played Slovenia. We played Montenegro, Moldova. We played a bunch of countries. We played Egypt, who won the Africa Cup, so they're going to the World Cup. They are phenomenal. A real good side. I expect them to do big things when the World Cup finally happens.
Those are serious
And
futsal teams.
what's that?
Those are serious football
Yeah,
nations, futsal
yeah,
nation.
yeah. So some of them, listen, they were very good. Egypt to me was special. We
Okay.
also went and played Dinamo Zagreb, their futsal team. And listen, their fans were awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
they got smoke bombs going off and
No
the
kidding.
flags and they're chanting.
Oh, how fun.
So it was an awesome experience to play there. And, we had fun. We spent a night in Germany. So, we got to go out and we got to explore Munich. The trip was awesome. We explored Croatia. Those trips are – listen, the game of soccer is extremely important to me, but I think if you ask a lot of athletes, even the ones who only played college and gave it up after that, it's about the memories, the experiences,
Absolutely.
the camaraderie of the locker room and the guys. I always tell people, like, I didn't come close to making the money that the superstars made. I didn't come close to having the career that they did. But if they were to put up their soccer stories against mine,
Nice.
my stories would win any day of the week because we're more regular people.
Yeah.
When we were in Tunisia, we spent the night in Paris together. Now, I went out with all the guys in Paris. We went out in Munich. When we go on these trips, wherever, if I'm in the home city or my team is going to another city, you can ask the guys around the league. They're looking for me because they know we're going to have an experience, whether we're just hanging on the beach having a laugh or we're going out at night.
Oh, that's so
So
cool.
I've always tried to make the most of what the game has given.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I've become truly so close with so many guys around the league.
I get it.
Whenever I'm in their city, we go out. Whenever they're in my city, we go out. When I was with the indoor arena team, we're bonding together. The futsal team, we're bonding together. So I've just always tried to, make it a fun experience for everyone who's involved and try to create those memories that, listen, I don't have the rings to show it from indoor. I wasn't able to win one yet.
That-
But when I'm down the line and hopefully when I'm, 60, 70, whatever it is, I'm sitting there laughing about those stories and memories that we made. It's great to talk about the championships that you won, and I've won a few in my career, but it's really about the memories.
Yeah.
Listen, like I said, Kobe's my favorite athlete. He always said, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Right.
And it's true. That journey to get to that final point, you're
Yeah.
going to remember everything that came along the lines, the ups, the downs. It's truly a special experience. And you get to meet so many different cultures and people. And I've made lifelong friends through it.
So you just touched on the thing that sort of got my heart in the game of soccer when I first started following it and falling in love with it. Was really the international flavor. I mean, back then we had the North American Soccer League. The San Diego Sockers played only outdoors, and the roster they had with Kaz Dana and Julie V and Volkmar Gross and some amazing players really got the love of the sport itself and the intricacies of the sport. But what really turned me on was that this club of mine here in San Diego could go anywhere in the world and play any other team anywhere in the world on any level of a tournament, whether they succeed or not, doesn't matter. It's an international language in sport. And I thought that's really, really what touched my heart in the game, and having the experience to travel. Well, I mean, as a fan, you kind of get the same experience, not to the same degree you guys get because you're doing the actual traveling, but as a fan, sort of living carry through your go through those oceans and getting those experiences in, it really is exciting. Listen, I want to ask you one thing about one of the major rule changes that has taken place since you've been playing indoor soccer. What is your personal take on the scoring system and the difference of it?
uh, so obviously, like I said, I'm very close with Soccer Sam, and we all know he's a massive advocate of the multi-point scoring.
Right.
It was obviously even a little bit different before I got in the league. Back when Tommy was playing, they had 1, 2s, and 3s.
That's right.
Since I've been in the league, it's 2s and 3s.
Right.
It's funny. Domenico Vitale and I are pretty good friends from Syracuse and Utica, and he messaged me the other day that he was watching our Rochester Lancers versus Baltimore Blast game, the last game that was the last home regular season home game for the Lancers at Blue Cross Arena.
Right.
We lost that game 25-23, I believe. And again, there was some solid players on the field that day, especially for Baltimore. But I went back and actually watched it after he told me to watch it. It's probably the best game I've ever played in indoor.
Yeah.
And I went back and watched it. But here's the thing. I think scoring by ones is normal, and it's a perfectly fine way to go about the game.
Right.
I don't necessarily like or dislike it. I think it's just like regular soccer. It's great.
Right.
But watching that game is, it's just interesting to see how quickly score lines can change when
Okay.
you have 2s and 3s. And you have to really analyze the game because, in that game, listen, that was a special game. There was 10,500 people there. Think about a 25-23 score line. There's a lot of excitement.
Sure.
And it was awesome. But, the thing that stuck out to me was one time my brother came to Rochester. It was that same season, I believe. We played Syracuse. We
Okay.
were losing by like 7, I think. And Mauricio went off and scored 2 3-pointers.
And
And
it's all,
now we're
yeah,
right back in the game.
it's
We're
a whole
down
different
1.
game. Right.
And the same thing goes on now when you're going 6th attacker, because it's like, okay, you're down by 2 or you're down by 3 or you're down by 4.
Right.
If you pull it and you get scored on, now
Wow.
most of those are 3-pointers. People aren't dribbling them the whole way of the length of the field.
That's true.
They're just passing it in. So now you also have to be careful because you're giving up a 3-pointer that's really going to impact your comeback chances.
That's an
So,
interesting
there's a lot of things that you got to try and think about and analyze. But, listen, if you're trying to gain, viewership, and you want to try and make it a so-called American sport where
Right.
people are, Americans love scoring and it's what they want.
Okay.
Some of those games I played in, they were so exciting that, and it gives it a little bit of a different flair. Listen, it's funny. Everyone will laugh if they hear this. I never scored a 3-pointer in my life. So it's pretty disheartening. I don't score too many outside the box, to be honest. But,
Okay.
to be honest, it's funny, but, I think that it doesn't even help my game out. It hurts my game. But I think that
Wow.
it
Okay.
makes the game exciting for
Okay.
sure.
Well, so that makes it, because you aren't speaking from a selfish standpoint when you say that.
Not at all.
That's
Not at all.
that's really cool. That's really cool. Let's talk a little teeny bit about what happened in Florida this season. Bringing all the guys in and having this team gel, and Clay Roberts putting it together. What's happening in Florida, man? It looks exciting.
Yeah. So obviously, majority of my career was spent on the East Coast, and upstate New York, for that matter.
Right.
And upstate New York has a special place in my heart. It
Of
really
course.
does. I feel like it's my second home.
Of course.
And I've met some great people there. You know, as I wrote, in that article, I didn't
Yeah.
really have my best season. There was a lot of things that were changing in my life. I had a rough season between injuries and things off the field, and my head just wasn't where it should have been.
Mm.
And they took care of me, and I guess maybe whatever, maybe it wasn't the right fit at the end of that season. So I was contacted by a few coaches saying that I wasn't going to be brought back to Utica. Listen, like I said, those guys are still my best friends.
Of
That's
course.
including Ryan Hall,
Of,
Tanner,
of course.
all the guys in the office.
Yeah. Of
I
course.
understand how sports work, and
Of
I understand the business aspect of it. They chose and decided to go in a different way. Of course, it's going to have a little bit of a salty feeling,
course.
but I completely understand it, and I think they did a good job revamping their team this year, and they had a solid squad.
Yep.
Um, so I only signed 1-year deals. There's a bunch of teams I've been in contact with every single year. And, Clay called me and he told me what, he was trying to do there. And again, Clay and I are friendly because I don't just always hang out with the players. I hang out with the coaches and the staff too. So Clay
Right.
and I have spent time together over the years before I got to Florida.
Right.
And we're friendly. And he told me what he was trying to do, and I'm not going to lie, I was a little skeptical at first. I'm like,
No,
listen,
me
I
too.
went, I went to Ontario, and I saw what happened out there where it didn't gel.
That's right.
Now when I was going to Florida, I was a little hesitant because I saw similar things happening again.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? It's a good deal. It's Florida. Maybe I need a fresh start from everything that happened last year.
Right.
So, let me take it. And they worked with me because I worked from home, a bunch of times where I had to come back home and take care of my soccer school. So, they were very good about working with my schedule. And, and obviously with futsal this year and everything
Yeah.
else. So, when I got down there, they had already been in preseason before I got down there. And when I got there, they were flying. And I was like, this looks pretty good. It seems
Right.
like people are buying in, but
Okay.
I'm still a little skeptical to when the game starts.
Right.
How is it going to be? When we were playing scrimmages, nobody's getting stats. Now it's like, all right, when the games start, how's it going to be? So, when I was down there, I did about 2 weeks of a preseason. They did about like a 5-6 week preseason, which is
Wow.
pretty intense.
Yeah, that's huge.
And when I got there, it was awesome. I had some problems with them from years past, playing against each other, celebrations, tackles, whatever else. And, it was a little awkward at first, I'm not going to lie. But some of those guys who, didn't like me, something I've learned over the last 15 months also is to not judge people until you get to actually know them.
No,
So we
right?
took some time to get to know each other, and
Very
I formed real good relationships with those guys. And we worked on indoor stuff. Credit to Clay. He really did a good job managing egos and star power.
Right.
And
Are you kidding?
I,
Yeah.
yeah. And, I tried to do my best to help from an indoor aspect because remember, they never trained with boards. They always trained outdoors and they never trained with boards. So I tried to help the team be successful with the boards aspect. And listen, credit to every single one of those guys on that team.
Yeah.
No one was selfish.
Nice.
Everyone played defense. We gave up 86 goals in 21 games.
No kidding.
I honestly have to give credit to every single one of those guys because everyone did their job. And you know what? For me, it wasn't like I needed to try and go out of my role and be a superstar player, which I'm not. We had those players.
Right.
I did my role.
Yep.
I scored a few. I assisted a few. I played good defense.
Right.
And I let the superstars on our team go to work, and
Absolutely.
they produced.
Yep.
So it really was special. It's unfortunate because I'm curious to see how it would have played out. Don't get me wrong. The West was coming along towards the end of the season.
Right.
But if you think about the East, we had Florida, Milwaukee, Utica, Baltimore, and even Harrisburg was in the mix, and they were not an easy team to play against.
That's right.
So, I think what they did in Florida was truly special. They took care of the players, on and off the field. They gave you what you needed. And I think that the organization was rewarded for that. Yeah, they brought in a lot of superstars. Yeah, they probably had to shell out some money for contracts. Sure. And yeah, it probably wasn't easy, but the players rewarded them back with wins. We were all ready. I had just come back from Croatia. We were ready to play Kansas City and claim the Eastern Conference title, that Sunday, right before we got shut down. And I'm just curious how it would have played out because I think anyone in the East could have won it, as great as Florida was. And teams on the West were coming along. Ontario was finding their groove. Right. Monterey was great. Sonora was finding their groove. Right. San Diego was good. So it would have been an interesting playoffs. And I'm just upset that, no one really got those chances to play. Look, we probably would have played Utica. So I would have been back in Utica wearing a different jersey. So there was a lot of interesting things that unfortunately weren't able to be completed this year.
What do you think? What do you think if there's any plans to, should there be plans to attempt to crown a champion?
Listen, we had a meeting before it ended. Monterey obviously has the best record. I jokingly put something out on Facebook before coronavirus got very serious, and I was telling I tagged someone from every team, and I was saying that we should meet in Chicago and play our own playoffs. And we had a little laugh about it. Obviously, it wasn't realistic, but Monterey had their record, and we were basically Eastern Conference champions.
Yep.
It's hard to crown a champion. I mean, I guess if you go by record, you give it to Monterey. If you wanted to just do a conference thing, it would be Monterey and Florida. Listen, it's hard to say because when the playoffs come, anyone could win. Harrisburg could have won the whole thing. That's right. Plenty of teams have done it in playoff situations or NCAA tournaments or the Giants when they beat the Patriots. And, there's, you never know what could have happened. So do I think that someone should be crowned a champion? Not necessarily. Do I think Monterey and Florida deserve credit for their regular season play? Yeah, probably with their conference championships. It doesn't mean you're a champion. That means you won your conference.
Joey, would you be happy if the league were to figure out a way to put those two teams together for a one-time, one-shot winner-take-all, carry the trophy away?
Listen, we mentioned a bunch of things with our end of the season meeting to try and figure out a way to crown a champion. As much as I think that's great, that's not the playoff system that's in play. So let's say Florida is to beat Monterey in that final. Okay, yeah, I technically won, but did I really win? That's not the playoff system that's there. So am I going to get a ring? Am I going to go in the books as a champion? Probably. But is everyone going to say there's an asterisk next to that? Of course. So,
Uh,
I don't really want that. I
right.
wanted to win it the right way.
So so there's
And
so that can't happen. As soon as they close down the regular season and this is carried on, it's impossible at this point to really. I mean, even if they were to bring the teams together and have a normal playoff, everybody's been dispersed. You're going to have different levels of fitness and
yeah,
whatnot at this point. It's really impossible at this point to have last year's playoffs happen as though it was last year's playoffs. Craig Childs made a comment that there was some discussion that maybe they would have a playoff tournament set up as a preseason to the next year in order to put a trophy on to somebody, award a trophy to somebody. But I don't think there's any way to get around the asterisk. If there's any kind of a champion crown, as a fan, I would just like to see something done and not have it just be an empty spot on the calendar of history. Uh, for although that's just me.
no, yeah. Listen, it's understandable. Again, like if you're gonna go by best record, it would be Monterey. But again, not everyone played the same amount of games, so
Yeah,
it
no,
still
I don't
doesn't
think.
even make it equally.
Yeah, and
Um,
I don't think anybody should be voted in. I think there should be at least some kind of a play.
right.
Just to award it, it doesn't work.
The problem also is if you do a preseason tournament, how many players are not on the same team that they were?
Absolutely,
So that's
absolutely.
another issue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not even. I mean, not only is it not the same team in the sense of fitness or game readiness, player to player, um, team chemistry that was working out at the end of the season. You mentioned how Ontario was coming on and they were really making it work. And that it wouldn't be the same Ontario team, even if it was the same players. But if you do it in the preseason, now there's trades that have been taking place, and some of the players are moved around. um, yeah, so it's just unfortunate. I think there was a better than good chance that you might have gotten yourself that ring this season.
Like I said, I honestly think it was open because there was a lot of good teams this year. But
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
again, credit to everyone at Florida because the team was special. It
Yeah.
really was. It was enjoyable to play on.
Well, Joey Tavernese, I have had a blast talking to you, buddy. This has been good fun. Um, MASL 2021 is coming. What are you going to be doing between now and the opening of that season?
I mean, honestly, I'm just hoping to get back out on the fields on multiple levels. I
Good,
want to start coaching kids again.
good.
I know they want to get back out there, and listen, I had been waiting 4 years for futsal for World Cup and the World Cup qualifiers. I've
Right.
been waiting 4 years since we got eliminated last time.
Yeah.
So I hope that maybe we can get those qualifiers in the
Wow.
summer. The World Cup is slated in September in Lithuania. So, even if we can get it in August and then hopefully qualify and head out in September, I'm just trying to do anything that's possible. Hey, listen, if they do a USA Mexico game, tell Phil to call me. I'll come out there. Um, so honestly, I just want everything to kind of get back to normalcy.
Yeah, no kidding.
Um, and for the time being, I'm gonna just try and be creative to use social media and Zooms and try and make the most that I can of this quarantine.
All right, Joey Tavernese, thanks so much for joining me. This is Greg Suddy, and I hope you really enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Hey
All
guys,
right.
if you like what you just watched, follow me on social media. Go to studyonsoccer.com, click on the Patreon link, and support me there. Thank you very much.